You're watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now. Welcome to episode 31 of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Fred. I'm the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering schools across Northeast Indiana and Elkhart County. That includes the ACAC, the NECC, and the Northeast 8. We are getting close to the month of May, which means things are going to start winding down for the school year as a whole. 2024-2025 school year will soon be a thing in the past. And since we are getting close to May, that also means the end of year coverage for ANEC Sports, and that will also include the third annual Athlete of the Year for the male and female athletes at ANEC Sports. Be on the lookout for a post as early as tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, as I send out information in regards to how a male or female athlete in the ANEC area can be nominated this year. Keep this in mind. We are expanding to 65 schools going into next year, but only the 30 that's been part of our coverage currently. Those 30 schools are the only ones that can actually nominate an athlete for Athlete of the Year. We're only going to put one athlete per school per gender. So you could have a situation where you have a kid from Belmont that could be nominated for the male athlete of the year, and another one that could be nominated for female athlete of the year. That's just one example of how we could do things here for the ANEC Sports male and female athletes of the year at ANEC Sports. We're going to make some changes in terms of how we award end of season coverage moving forward, because we are expanding. It also means the way in which we do things in the past is also going to change. Now, when we get to the talk around the corner, I do want it to make this one much, much shorter this time around, because the NECC tournaments for baseball and softball, they start tomorrow. That's not a lot of time for me to record the show and then edit the show and then post it if it's 40 or 50 minutes long or whatnot. So we're going to make this one much shorter here. That means we're going to have to skip with volleyball, and we're going to have to skip with track for this week. Sorry, that's just the way it's going to be with that. But we will talk about the NECC tournaments. But first, I do want to mention the other two conferences that we primarily cover at ANEC Sports, and that is the ACAC and the Northeast 8. So ACAC play actually started last week, and so far this year, at least for softball, South Adams currently leading the way in the conference, 9-1 overall, 1-0 in conference play, thanks to a 16-1 victory over the Bluffton Tigers on Thursday. They also picked up a win in the Concordia Invitational over the weekend against Concordia and whatnot, although Central Noble ultimately won the Concordia Invitational as a whole. South Adams, their only loss so far this season, actually came last Wednesday at the hands of East Noble, 12-0. That's a nice East Noble team there that, well, let's just say it, East Noble they had a dominant performance against South Adams. It's kind of an uncharacteristic performance for South Adams, where they committed 3 errors. The defense allowed East Noble to record 12 hits. Just not one of their usual performances, but still, nonetheless, South Adams having a great start to the season, and they will continue their conference run on Tuesday when they travel to Heritage to take on the Heritage Patriots, who currently sits at 8-3 on the season. They have yet to play a conference game, as last week Heritage was still playing non-conference games, where they're currently on a 3-game losing streak right now. They started the season 8-0. They've lost their last 3 games, losing 4-1 to Carroll on Monday, 5-4 on Wednesday at the hands of Belmont, and then they traveled to Leo on Thursday. They had a 3-1 lead going into, I believe, was the 4th inning, and then Leo scored 5 runs in that 4th inning as the Lions held on for a 6-3 win against the Heritage Patriots. Now, Heritage has a game on Monday, which is tomorrow. They'll be traveling to Bishop Dwyer to take on the Saints, and then Tuesday they'll host South Adams. Thursday, they're at Southern Wells, and that will be the week for the Heritage Patriots. As for South Adams, 9-1 the season. They're 1-0 in conference play. Again, they will continue conference play on Tuesday when they host the Heritage, when they travel to Heritage, when they travel to the Heritage Patriots. And then Thursday, they will host Union City before traveling to Belmont on Friday to take on the Braves. As far as other ACAC softball contentions concerned, Adams Central is 1-0 in conference play. That was their first win of the season last week against Southern Wells, where the Jets defeated the Raiders by a score of 7-3 in Bonito. But they have a tall task ahead of them on Tuesday when they host the Woodland Warriors and then travel to Jay County on Thursday. Woodland is certainly going to be an intriguing team to keep an eye on as Woodland gets things underway in conference play. They are 12-1 in the season, and they are hitting the ball at an insane pace right now for the Woodland Warriors. As Alyssa Harvey, just last week, she became this program's career leader in home runs, and she's got 8 home runs on the season. She's got 23 in her career. Woodland just picked up a 10-2 win on Friday against the Snyder Panthers on the road, and they will be continuing their dominant season tomorrow when they host Wayne Trace out of Ohio in Woodburn. And then Tuesday, they'll begin conference play at Adams Central on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, they'll host the Bluffton Tigers before they take on and host the Jay County Patriots for a doubleheader on Saturday. And another team to keep an eye on as well is Jay County. They have not lost the game yet. They're 8-0 on the season. A lot of that can be contributed to the senior Mallory Winter, who's leading in most categories for Jay County in batting average at .667. She also is one of their pitchers who's having a nice season for the Jay County Patriots. They run a solid 2-pitcher rotation with Winter and then Carly Trinidad. You also have Jalen Likens with 2 home runs on the season. Keep in mind, Hallie Schwederman is also on this team, and she's doing quite well as a sophomore for the Jay County Patriots. And this is a team they're young, but they're also a pretty experienced team as well. So this is going to be a fun year for the ACAC as conference play really gets underway this week for the rest of the ACAC. And we'll see if South Adams can defend their conference or if a team like Jay County or Heritage or Woodland can take that conference championship away from South Adams, a team that made it to semi-state last season. In terms of baseball, right now we have Adams Central, Bluffton, and Jay County leading the way 1-0 in conference play. The Jets picked up a 13-1 win against Southern Wells last Thursday. They are going to be hosting Woodland coming off a split at Monroe Central. So they'll host Woodland on Tuesday. The Woodland Warriors are 7-7 on the season, coming off a 6-5 defeat at the hands of Jay County, and then they were swept by Lakeland in a Saturday doubleheader by a combined score of 19-3 in that doubleheader. They will also be traveling to Jay County on Thursday, take on the Patriots, and then Friday they'll be traveling to take on the Whitco Wildcats, who currently sit at 6-2 on the season. Looking at the rest of those top-tier teams in the ACAC currently as we speak, the Bluffton Tigers, they are currently 1-0 the season, 9-5 overall. They had a comeback win against the Belmont Braves last Tuesday, a 13-11 victory, and following a 13-6 defeat against Canterbury, they came away with a 7-5 win at South Adams to pick up their first conference win of the season. It was a comeback victory for the Bluffton Tigers, and they'll look to continue their strong start in the ACAC on Tuesday when they host Southern Wells, their county rivals, and then Thursday they'll be traveling to Woodland to take on the Woodland Warriors. And then also another team that's also 1-0 is Jay County, as I mentioned earlier. They are 3-6 on this season. They are coming off a 14-4 defeat at the hands of Norwell on Tuesday, and then defeated Woodland on Thursday 6-5. They'll be hosting Monroe Central tomorrow. Then they'll host Adams Central on Thursday. And pretty light week of baseball for Jay County. One other team to watch that has not played a conference game yet, then that would be the Heritage Patriots. They're 6-1 on the season as we speak. Their only loss came in the hands of Van Wert, Ohio, back on April the 10th. So they are undefeated against in-state competition. They are coming off a 7-6 win against the Lakeland Lakers on Wednesday in LaGrange, and then dominate Lakewood Park on Thursday in Monroeville, 14-0 in 5 innings. They will start conference play on Tuesday when they host South Adams, And then they will be hosting the Bishop Lures Knights on Wednesday for a in-county non-conference game. And then Thursday, they'll get right back into conference play. They'll travel to Southern Wells. And then Friday, they'll be hosting the Concordia Cadets to wrap up the week. So this is a busy week for Heritage coming up as they get started in ACHC play, looking to defend the conference once again for the story-rich Heritage Patriots baseball program. Also, taking a look at softball and baseball for the Northeast State. Conference play for the Northeast State begins this week, and I believe it begins on Tuesday. So looking at some teams to watch in the Northeast State, Leo has been the team, has been the standard of excellence over the last decade plus, not only for the conference, but also for the area as a whole. Leo currently sitting at 10-2 on the season. They had a 1-0 win against Lincolnville on Monday. That's a school out of Ohio. They came back to defeat South Bend Riley in extra innings, 8-5. That went to 8 innings against Riley. And then they came back from a 3-1 deficit on Thursday to defeat Heritage 6-3. They resume play with their conference opener tomorrow when they host the Norwell Knights. And then on Tuesday, they'll host the Carroll Chargers, a team that is 8-1 on the season. Norwell, just want to go back to Norwell real quick, 6-3 on the season. Norwell made it to semi-state last year, just like Leo. And then Wednesday, they'll host New Haven for conference play. And then on Thursday, they'll wrap up the week by traveling to the World Baseball Academy in Fort Wayne, Indiana, to take on Bishop Dwayner for a non-conference game. And then that's how things will go for Leo this week for softball. Another team to watch is Columbia City. 8-2 on the season are the Columbia City Eagles. They are coming off a dominant week of softball for Columbia City. They had a 3-0 win at Snyder on Monday, 20-5 win the next day against Warsaw. Then on Wednesday, a 9-0 shutout against Bremen on the road. And then they came up with a 13-2 win at Bishop Lures. But things are going to get tough for Columbia City this week. They open conference play at Belmont tomorrow. That will be the ANEC softball game of the week. Be on the lookout for a preview for that matchup there between Columbia City and Belmont. And then on Tuesday, not really a break from the Belmont game. They'll be hosting Homestead on Tuesday. And then they'll go right back to conference play on Wednesday at Huntington North. And then they will host Northrop on Friday. And then they will be going to Lebanon on Saturday. They'll play 2 games at Lebanon, first with LaPel at noon, and then a 4:00 game against Triton Central to wrap up the week. So busy week for Columbia City as well as they get things rolling for Northeast State play. East Noble, they are 5-2 on the season. Are the East Noble Knights. They are coming off a sweep of Lakeland, 13-3 and 9-2 on Saturday. And then before that, they had a 12-0 win against South Adams on Wednesday, the 23rd. They will open conference play on Monday against winless Huntington North at home to begin conference play. And then they'll continue conference play on Wednesday at DeKalb. And then Thursday, they'll host Northrop. Friday, they'll be at Homestead. And then they'll be hosting Wawa C on Saturday to wrap up the week. And then I don't want to talk too much here. I want to really just stick to the main teams to watch here. So I'll talk mainly Norwell and Belmont, and then we'll shift right to baseball. I mentioned Norwell is 6-3 on the season. They will open conference play tomorrow when they travel to Leo. And then on Wednesday, in the battle on 8 Mile Creek, they'll host the Belmont Braves on Wednesday for conference play. And then they'll wrap up the week on Thursday when they travel to Concordia. Speaking of Belmont, I mentioned the Braves are playing Columbia City tomorrow. They are 5-3 on the season. They've had some tough losses to open the season. A 4-3 loss to Ole Miss, 7-5 loss at Woodland, and they had a 3-2 loss to Carroll just last Thursday. Now they are coming off a 14-7 win against Delta in the Kokomo tournament, and so there are some building pieces for Belmont as they get into conference play, and a team that they think might be able to compete in the Northeast States. So they'll be hosting Columbia City tomorrow. Wednesday in the battle on 8 Mile Creek, they'll travel to Norwell. And then on Friday, they'll host county rival South Adams. And then that will be the way things go for Belmont this week. Not as busy of a week for Belmont as we see with Columbia City and Leo, but Belmont will certainly have some quality competition ahead. And then obviously the Calvin, New Haven, Huntington North rounds off the rest of the Northeast 8. Taking a look at baseball, and last year it came down the wire for the conference race in baseball, and it was Norwell that eventually won the conference, but needed help from Belmont to secure an outright conference championship as Belmont defeated East Snowball in the final conference game of that season, and Norwell remained as outright conference champs. So we take a look at Norwell. Take a look at Norwell. They are currently 7-4 on the season. Are the Norwell Knights? They are coming off a sweep of Guerin Catholic on Saturday, 5-3 and 12-10. That was a nice bounce back performances. Nice back set of performances, following a 4-0 loss to Homestead on Thursday. They will actually begin this week by hosting Concordia tomorrow, and then they will open conference play on Tuesday when they host the Leo Lions in the ANEC baseball game of the week. We'll talk about Leo in a matter of moments, and then they'll go right back to conference play on Thursday at Belmont, and then they'll wrap up the week on Friday when they travel to Huntertown to take on the Carroll Chargers. Speaking of the Leo Lions, they are undefeated on the season so far, 8-0 in the season on the Leo Lions. They are coming up an 18-2 win against Fremont on Wednesday. They had a 12-0 win against Woodland the day before that. And just 2 weeks ago, nearly 2 weeks ago, they had a 4-3 win against the Carroll Chargers. So Leo's having played some nice baseball so far, but again, the road gets tougher from here for the Leo Lions as they open conference play on Tuesday when they travel to the defending conference champion Norwell. And then on Wednesday, they'll host the Bishop Lanier Saints. Then they'll go right back to conference play on Thursday at New Haven against their rivals in the East Allen County District before traveling to take on the Blackhawk Christian Braves in a Saturday doubleheader. DeKalb's another one to keep an eye on. They're 8-1 in the season. Their lone defeat came at the hands of Carroll on April the 17th, just a couple weeks ago. And since then, DeKalb has been firing all cylinders as of late. They had a 17-6 win against Angola on Monday, then follow that up with a 12-1 win against Blackhawk Christian on Tuesday, 9-5 win at Snyder on Wednesday. That was their most recent game for the DeKalb Barons. They opened conference play on Tuesday in a very challenging first conference game for the DeKalb as they host a much improved New Haven team. They will then go back, continue in conference play by traveling to East Snowball on Thursday, and then they'll wrap up the week with a Saturday doubleheader at Woodland. Speaking of New Haven, the Bulldogs are 6-5 on the season. And when talking to head coach Dave Bischoff, he felt very confident about this team going into this season. It felt like this pitching has improved a lot from the past couple of years, and so far the pitching has been a big part of New Haven's start to the season. But the Bulldogs are going to have a challenging conference schedule ahead for the Bulldogs, but they are coming off a 4-game winning streak entering this week. They defeated South Adams a couple weeks ago, 11-1. They had a comeback win against Woodland on Monday, 8-7 on Monday. They dominated Southside on Wednesday, 10-0. And then on Friday, they also had a dominant performance against Lakewood Park, 11-1. Before they get to conference play, they will actually start the week by hosting the Northwood Bruins tomorrow, and then they'll open conference play on Tuesday in a very challenging two conference games to begin their conference slate. They'll travel to DeKalb on Tuesday, and then on Thursday, they'll host their arch nemesis, the Leo Lions, on Thursday. And that's pretty much the week for New Haven for this week. And then Columbia City is another one to watch. They're 8-3 on the season. They are also riding a 4-game winning streak where they defeated Concordia 15-4 on Wednesday. They defeated Manchester, a really good Manchester team, on Friday, 16-1, and then swept West Snowball in two very competitive games in that doubleheader, 6-5, 9-8 at Columbia City. But they will actually start the week tomorrow when they host the Homestead Spartans, and then they'll open conference play on Tuesday, hosting the Belmont Braves. Then they'll host Huntington North on Thursday before making the drive to Wabash to take on Northfield in a Saturday doubleheader. Another team to watch is Huntington North. The Vikings are 8-4 on the season. They are riding a 5-game winning streak dating back to April 16th when they defeated Peru 9-4. They had a 4-3 win against Warsaw on the 17th. And then last week, they defeated Wabash 12-3 on Monday. Ole Miss on Tuesday at Parkview Field 5-2. And then defeated Manchester on Thursday 9-6. So they will open conference play on Tuesday where they host the East Snowball Knights. Thursday at Columbia City. And then they'll have that doubleheader at home against Kokomo on Saturday. And then lastly, let's just talk about East Snowball real quick here. As the Knights currently sit at 5-3 on the season, they had a pretty challenging week for East Snowball. They lost back-to-back games on Thursday at the hands of Carroll, 12-5 and 9-1, and then on Saturday bounced back with a 3-2 win at home against the Garrett Railroaders. The Open Conference, actually, before they open conference play, they'll be hosting the East. Actually, before they start conference play, they'll be hosting Bishop Lures tomorrow, and then they'll open conference play at Huntington North on Tuesday, and then on Thursday they'll host their arch nemesis DeKalb on Thursday, and that's pretty much the week for East Snowball, as they will then take on West Snowball next week. That's the way things are for the Northeast 8 as a whole. We'll talk more about the Northeast 8 next week, or at least at the very least our next episode of the NECC Sports Podcast. Now, to wrap things up in the NECC Sports Podcast, I do want to mention the NECC tournament. So this week is NECC tournament week for baseball and softball. This is the 50th NECC baseball tournament. This is the 36th softball tournament for the Northeast Corner Conference, not counting the 2020 season that was canceled. Conference tournament play gets underway on Monday for NECC baseball and softball. And so what will happen? So Monday, it goes like this. Eastside is at Angola. That's the very top of the brackets. And then you have Central Noble hosting West Noble on Monday. And then you have, trying to remember real quick here, Fremont is hosting Garrett on Monday as well. And that's the Monday slate of games. And then on Tuesday, the winners of West Noble CN and Eastside and Angola will square up on Tuesday. The winner of Eastside and Angola will host the second round matchup against either West Noble or CN. And then Busco will host Prairie Heights. The Garrett Fremont winner will host Fairfield. And then Lakeland will host Westview. And that is the exact order that you will see on the brackets. So we are following exactly from top to bottom what the bracket looks like for both the baseball and softball tournaments. For those that don't have a bracket, the dates go like this. April 28th, which is tomorrow, those are the first round games. April 29th, those are the second round games. May 1st, that's when the softball semifinals will take place. May 2nd, that's on a Friday, that's the baseball semifinals. And then the softball championship will be played on Friday, May 2nd. The baseball championship game will be played on Saturday, May 3rd. All softball games will be played at 5:30 p.m., or at least that's the scheduled time is 5:30 p.m. Baseball, almost every game except the championship game will be played at 5:30. Saturday will be a noon start for the baseball championship game as a whole. And I know in the past baseball had a neutral site for the championship games, and I forgot about it until recently that apparently they recently went away from that. So now baseball and softball, whoever is the top team in that bracket, they host the championship game. So say Eastside baseball makes it to the championship game, they would be the host of that game. So that's how things go with that. And the consolation games will take place on Thursday, May 1st. We will know consolation matchups following Tuesday's slate of games. When you look at softball right now, it's a very competitive conference. And you will see my interview with Brennen Kitchen of Eastside as he talked about his Eastside softball team off to 11-3 start of the season. They're 4-0 in conference play. Right in the thick of things in the conference race with Garrett and Fairfield and Central Noble. It's pretty much a competitive conference across the board for the most part. So we expect Eastside to very much be in the midst once again in the conference. We expect Central Noble to be very competitive. They return a lot back, which includes their top two pitchers. Garrett, probably the surprise team of the conference so far, led by Peyton Grindstaff and Sarah Depew, their pitcher, Ashley Vanderbosch, Adelie Gullet for Garrett is another one that's had a nice year for the Railroaders. Just want to make sure I don't forget anybody for sure. I think that's pretty much everybody. Addie Wirt's another one that's having a nice year for Garrett. I mean, it's really just been a strong year all around for Garrett. They currently are first place in conference as they are 5-0 in conference play. They are 11-2 overall on the season. I'm curious to see if Eastside and Central Noble were to advance to Tuesday's second round matchup. I'm curious to see who comes out of that game, because if Eastside were to win, they would be hosting that next round matchup, and more than likely they're going to probably face Central Noble again, as CN is taking on West Noble. It's a rebuilding West Noble team. Most people are probably expecting Eastside and CN to face each other, although that Angola matchup's pretty tricky for a first round matchup for Eastside. But I mean, either way, like, Eastside will still be favored in that matchup. The bottom half of the bracket should be intriguing as well, with Fairfield in the bottom half of the bracket. Fremont's a sleeper in that conference tournament. Fremont can hit the ball extremely well, and so I think Garrett's got to be careful overlooking the Free Eagles in that first round matchup up in Fremont. But obviously, Garrett will certainly be a team to watch in this conference tournament. Fairfield, obviously, one of the most well-coached teams in the area. They are certainly going to be a team to watch, as well as this Fairfield team is quite loaded as well, and they're always well-coached every year, no matter what they have on the field. Fairfield's always going to give you their best performance out there. And then the Civil War, the LaGrange County Civil War, is also a second-round matchup between Westview and Lakeland. That's always an intriguing game between these two. Curious to see who comes out of that one as well. But again, I think all eyes are on Eastside and Central Noble, because the way the bracket's set up, that matchup right there could really dictate what the rest of that week goes for the softball tournament. These are two of the most successful teams over the last few years in softball. Very curious to see who comes out of that. Central Noble won the conference last year, but before that, Eastside had won it 2 straight years, if I recall. And then you get to baseball. Again, same matchups as softball, right? Eastside still going to Angola by, the same lineup as I mentioned earlier. Eastside, they are off to a nice start as well. I believe they also only have 3 losses as well. They also are 4-0 in conference play, if I recall. They are going to be another one to keep an eye on. Eastside has dominated this tournament over the last several years, although they didn't win it last year, as they fell to, I believe they lost to Garrett, if I recall. Was it? No, I'm sorry. They lost to Lakeland last year in the conference tournament. There we go. And Lakeland ended up winning that conference tournament for the first time since 1997. But obviously, Eastside will be one to keep an eye on. I think they might make a run back to the championship game. We'll see what happens there. Central Noble, who knows CN, what type of pitcher comes out there. And, and I don't think CN winning on Monday is not a sure thing on Monday for baseball. West Noble has looked much better this year for the West Noble Chargers under Waylon Richardson. I believe they have a winning record going into the tournament. If I recall, West Noble is 6-6, so they're right at 500. And so West Noble is going to be another one to keep an eye on. They got some nice pitchers on this team led by Brooks Broussard and Jordan Esch. Jordan Esch, always a nice athlete for the Chargers. You got Trey Schisler with 14 stolen bases. So West Noble is certainly going to be a team to keep an eye on. They could be a sleeper in this tournament as a whole. Obviously, that matchup between Fremont and Garrett will be intriguing. Nice year for the Fremont Eagles. They have the arms potentially to make a deep run in that tournament in baseball for the Fremont Eagles. Fairfield, they have been one of the top teams as well, but they are a much younger team this year. They graduated a lot from last year. I think Coach Kaufman told me they graduated 10 seniors or something like that. Fairfield's a battle-tested team, but they are also a young team. They also have not as much depth in their rotation this time around, so that is something to watch as well for Fairfield. I would say the matchup to really keep an eye on in this tournament is what's going to happen with Westview and Lakeland in that conference tournament for baseball. That would be something to keep an eye on for baseball, as Lakeland and Westview square off in that conference tournament. So that will be something to watch there, as you have Matt's Angle of Westview taking on Lakeland. We expect probably Carson Mickham to start in that game against Westview. That's going to be a very difficult matchup there. And I forgot to mention, and then so I want to make sure I mention this too, like Prairie Heights and Churubusco. That's kind of a toss-up matchup as well. Who knows who wins that game for baseball? So again, pretty wide open conference. I think a lot of us anticipate Eastside to make it back to the championship game. I think this bracket is open for Eastside to make a run back, but I think the bottom half of the bracket is much more difficult for whoever comes out of the bottom half of the bracket. It could be Lakeland, could be Westview, could be Fremont. Fairfield's got to be in that midst as well. I don't even think Garrett should be out of it as well. So the bottom half of the bracket is kind of a brutal run to the championship game, and I think Eastside, if the cards go their way, the path is pretty reasonable for Eastside on paper. But obviously, we're kind of keeping an eye on that West Noble Central Noble game, as this West Noble team is not going to be an easy team this year. So again, even though we think Eastside can make it back to Saturday's championship game, this time around, that West Noble game could be intriguing. If the Chargers were to advance past Central Noble, that West Noble team could be a fun one to keep an eye on as well. But again, history tells us that repeats have happened before, but there's a lot of parity in the Northeast Corner Conference for both baseball and softball. Right now, Lakeland currently leads in baseball, but it's not a sure thing they're going to win the conference, because you got Eastside in the midst. Fairfield is still in the midst. Westview probably not going to win the conference, but they're going to be a team that could pull off an upset because they have the talent to do so. West Noble maybe doesn't win the conference, but they can also pull off an upset as well. And then, as we mentioned with softball, you got Garrett, kind of the surprise team of the area. Churubusco's had their best season or best start to the season in a long time. On top of the fact you got Eastside and Central Noble and Fairfield, the usual contending teams in the midst as well. So this is a fun time right now for the Northeast Corner Conference, and this week's really going to showcase a lot of depth and parity and competition amongst both tournaments. And so that's going to do it for the talk around the corner. Again, this is a much shorter talk around the corner than usual, because we're only going to be talking about just baseball and softball. Hopefully we'll talk about the other sports next week, but at the very least with this week, it's only baseball and softball. But now we're going to turn over to my interview with Brennen Kitchen. And until next time, I say so long. I'm here with the head softball coach of the Eastside Blazers, Brennen Kitchen, as his team prepares for the upcoming NECC tournament, which begins tomorrow. Coach, how are things going for you on this Sunday evening?
Great. Sun's shining. It's been a great weekend. We're looking forward to a good week of softball. I know the forecast past tomorrow, at least, looks like a little bit of rain in there. So hopefully we can dodge some raindrops and get some of these games in.
Yep. As we get set for the 36th NECC softball tournament, which your team has been a part of most of these championships in the history of this tournament and whatnot. Going into this season, your team has had a lot of success since you took over as the head softball coach just 3 years ago. Your team won a state championship in Class 2A. A lot of success in the NECC, made a deep run not too long after that state championship, made it to regionals last year, won 23 games last season. You did have to replace quite a bit of players going into this season, which includes J.C. Kitchen in the infield and then Moya McAtee on the mound and whatnot. Talk about how this team has been able to adjust from last season to this season, especially having a pretty different looking roster. But so far this season, entering the tournament 11-3 on the season and undefeated in conference play, your team is still doing quite well so far.
Yeah, we knew this year was going to look a lot different. Of course, losing 6 seniors from last year who all started, having to replace them. And of course, when you have to replace your pitcher, Moira, of course, she logged a lot of innings, and JC actually was our number 2 pitcher last year for us too. And we had to replace about 99% of our innings from last year, and as well as Timmery Hunter, our catcher. So when you have to replace the battery, of course, that's a big deal, obviously, in high school softball. So, but so far, so good. We have a lot of young girls who have stepped up. We're starting right now. Most of our games, we've started 2 seniors, 2 juniors, and then we've got 4 sophomores and a freshman that start normally. So, so we're a young team. We knew that coming in. This is not something we are going to use as an excuse or anything else. We just want to continue to play better throughout the year, learn from our mistakes, because we know there are going to be mistakes. There have been plenty of mistakes so far. But I like our team's makeup. Our kids come ready to play every day. We emphasize when you step in that batter's box, you compete. When you are on that field, we are going to fight and compete all the time. And I like our kids' mental makeup. I like our kids' fight, and I like the way we compete. So far, so good. We know we're going to see potentially we could see some really good teams this week. And then we know that the last part of our season past the conference tournament, we have probably some of the tougher teams in our conference coming up. So yeah, but we like how things are going so far. Our confidence is fairly high. So we're ready for the week, I think.
Yep. And when you look at the schedule very briefly, open the season against Woodland, and so far with on that season, Woodland has not only lost that one game this year against Leo, and they've looked quite good this year. You had a loss to Homestead on March 27th. Homestead's having a nice year as well, but since then you've rattled off most of your wins in the month of April. Only lost one loss in the month of April that came against the Carroll Chargers, another team having a great season as well. You're coming off a 9-0 win against Prairie Heights and then a 9-3 win against Cherubusco. You look at this team, you talked about the mental toughness of this team, finding players that could step up. Daniel Guerrera had a nice week for your team. You got Elodie Bishop on that team, Emily McLean, Lily Klein, who is one of the lone players still remaining from the 2022 state championship roster. Lucy Kitchen as well. Reese Shaw had a nice week as well. Talk a little bit more specifically about the team mentality, so to speak, and be able to have the confidence of having any player coming up and make a play on whether it's offense or defense.
Yeah. I think it starts, of course, with Lily Klein. She's our lone senior starter coming back. Anna McAtee is our other senior on the team. Anna starts in right field for us. Lily has started. This is her 3rd year starting at shortstop for us. And they're on the state team. Lily was our DP as a freshman. Played a huge role in our state championship in 2022. She was a big part of that team and has been a big part of our program for the last 4 years. So, yeah, it starts with her, of course, her mentality on the field. Lily's a quiet girl. She doesn't really lead. She's not real vocal leader, but she leads by example, and she's pretty chill. So, so not a lot of stuff. She doesn't let a lot of stuff bother her on the field. You'd never know. And so I think some of our girls kind of take that example a little bit as they go. In the circle this year, our pitchers, we've got, and we knew that was going to be a work in progress, of course. Logging the most innings this year has been a freshman, Kaylin Mayberry, who's come in. We really like her toughness, the way she competes. She's doing a really nice job for us in the circle so far this year. She's gotten roughed up a little bit here and there, but that's to be expected from a freshman. And we talk about in softball, you have the confidence that some of these girls can go up and down like a roller coaster. And we just, it's next pitch. We have to have that next pitch mentality. And we're trying to get that with, and Kaylin's done a nice job of that so far this year, both on the mound and when she's batting. She's got a really nice bat as well in the middle of our lineup. And then Danielle Guerra, like you talked about, she's had a great year at the plate for us. And she's actually, she's our number 2 pitcher right now in terms of innings that's have pitched, and she's done a really nice job in the circle too. She's really improved from last year. She was our lone returner with innings from last year pitching. She pitched, I think it was only about 6 or 8 innings last year on the year. But she's really improved from last year. She's just a sophomore for us. But yeah, her bat has done a nice job as well. I can go right down the lineup. Lily leads off for us and has done a nice job at leadoff. Of course, she took over for JC from last year. JC was our leadoff batter for the last 4 years before that, and Lily's done a nice job. Lily's getting on base a lot, and number 2 is Emily McLean, and you know the McLean name, of course. Emily's younger sister to Faith and Grace, who are on our state championship team, and both of them are playing college ball right now. Emily's got a great bat for us. She does a nice job in that 2 spot, and then Lucy Kitchen is our third hitter and has done a nice job so far. LD Bishop's in there. LD is catching for us. LD does a nice job behind the plate for us this year. Really stepped into that role. She caught a little bit as a freshman for us a couple years ago, a few innings here and there, but she's taken over that job solely now and is doing a really nice job. And then Danielle Guerra, like we talked about, is really having a great season. Third baseman Tegan Vanover is a sophomore for us. Didn't start the year at third, and we've kind of transitioned her in there. She's learning every game, getting better every single game. Is doing a nice job. Kayla Mayberry, like I said, freshman, has a lefty stick. She throws right, bats left. She's got gap power. She's really had a nice season for us. Reese Scholl, you talked about her before, junior. She had a great week for us last week. Really has had a great year for us at the plate. Reese and Danielle are switching in and out at first base for us, but Reese provides that power for us. Has a lot of pop in her bat, and which we really like down towards the middle and bottom half of our lineup. And then Anna McAtee, our senior, has done a nice job for us as well. So up and down the lineup, we really like our lineup. We feel like we can play. We've got pop in there. We've got girls who can get on base. We can play small ball. So I like how the makeup of our lineup and our toughness in there too. If you've been around me enough, you know I do not like any coach. You don't like strikeouts, of course. Nothing good comes of a strikeout. So we fight. We get 2 strikes on us. We want to fight our tails off and try to put the ball in play somehow. We talk about the first 2 strikes that you have that you see are yours. Those are yours. You can do. You know that's where you want to hit your gappers. That's when you want to barrel it up. But that last strike, you're going to see, if you get 2 strikes, that last strike you see is for your team. So you're going to fight for your teammates, fight for your team, and put the ball in play and do what you need to do to move runners and to try to get on base. So yeah, so far so good. We've got a young group, but we like the way they're progressing. And our goal, of course, is to be playing our best softball by tournament time. And it's hard to believe that we're almost halfway through the season already.
Yeah, and it's a very athletic team, and a lot of schools of the size of Eastside don't have that much. That don't usually have that type of athleticism and depth that your team has over the last couple of years or so. So now you enter conference tournament play. You're traveling to Angola tomorrow. It's a pretty tricky first round game to start the week, going up to Angola. That's usually been a tough place over the years. They are down this year, but they're still pretty scrappy in general. And when you look at the bracket, if you are able to win that game tomorrow, you would be hosting the next round, which would likely be a rematch against Central Noble, a team that ended your conference tournament defense last year in round of Central Noble win the conference tournament and whatnot. But even if you go beyond the conference tournament with you and Central Noble, you have Fairfield that's having a nice year once again, led by Madison Jones. Garrett has had a nice year this year. They actually are currently in first place in the conference standings. So Garrett's another tough team right there. Fremont's another intriguing team. Westview's usually a tough team come this point of the season. Lakeland's had some nice players as well. So you have a tough tournament ahead of you, as you usually do every year with this conference tournament. What do you like about this bracket, and what's your preparation going to be like going into the matchup against Angola on Monday?
Yeah, we played Angola earlier in the year. That was our first conference game and their first conference game. And it seems like every year we have about 10 games under our belt when we get to that point, and they have about 2 games under their belt when we get to that point. And we've been pretty successful when we face them in that scenario the last few years. Now they've got they have a young team as well. And I know that now that they have more games under their belt, it's going to be a different team that we see tomorrow than what we saw just a couple of weeks ago. So they had a really nice win against Fremont. I think it was last week, or maybe even the Thursday the week before. And Fremont's a really good team, really good hitting team. And we saw that firsthand a couple of weeks ago. So I know tomorrow's going to look a little bit different than what we had before. As far as first game of the regular season, or first game of the conference season against Angola. So we're going to have to compete. We know playing on the road at Angola is never easy. Pete does a great job at Angola. I know he's going to have them ready to play. So we're going to have to be prepared and ready for a dogfight, of course. And then, looking past that at some of the teams you just mentioned, of course, Central Noble going into this season, I think pretty much everybody thought Central Noble was probably going to be one of the better teams in the conference just because of their pitching, number one. Of course, having Swank and Kimmel, both of those two are two of the better pitchers in our conference, and they're both on the same team, of course. So yes, that definitely, what Central Noble is going to bring to the table. And then you mentioned a lot of those other teams too. Garrett, of course, is kind of a surprise right now, and they're having a great beginning of the season. Cherubusco had a great beginning of the season as well. You mentioned, Lakeland and Westview are on the upswing too. And Fairfield's always there, of course. So Fairfield's always lurking at the bottom of that bracket during conference tournament season. I think the last 4 years they've been down in that bottom bracket, and they're always lurking there, and they always and they're, under Coach Skibby, they're always going to be fundamentally solid. They're very well coached, and of course they've got some really good pop in the middle of their lineup right now, and really good players there. So yeah, we know our conference is tough. It's exciting to see that the conference. I feel like the conference is softball wise is better right now than it has been the last 2 or 3 years. I think so. So I think our conference as a whole is on the upswing, and whoever wins the tournament this week is going to have to earn it, definitely. So yeah, you mentioned that a lot of good teams. It's always a fun week. I just hope the weather cooperates.
Mm-hmm. And that leads to my final question here as we get to the month of May, and this is during that time where it feels like once the bad weather starts to come through the state, May gets better weather, which means we get a cramped schedule in the month of May. But for your conference, it's quite unique because you have the conference tournament, and then right after the conference tournament, you're going right into this conference race where you still have to play Central Noble. You still got to play Garrett. I believe you still have to play Fairfield, if I'm correct. I could be wrong on that, but either way, you're still got to play the meat of your conference left in the season. Your sectional, you as a unique way of setting things up is all NECC sectional as well, and then regionals. You're going to have a tough matchup there as well. For your team to be an opportunity to be at your best come postseason time, regardless what happens this week, what are areas that you feel like your team can be better going into not only this week, but in the coming weeks ahead as we go and get to that stretch of the season for the Eastside Blazers?
Yeah, right now, we've beginning of the year. I like how our offense has developed a little bit, but having said that, we haven't faced some of the better pitchers that we are going to face. So when we faced the better pitchers, and the most recent one that comes to mind is when we played Carroll last week. We came out and we did not really compete very well. And that was, she was one at that time. That was the best pitcher we had seen up to that point. And so, and I didn't feel like we competed as well as we could. But of course, those losses with a young team, you take them, you learn from them, and you move on. So hopefully our girls learn from that offensively. For us to be at our best, we have to be able to put the ball in play. We have to be able to play small ball, manufacture runs here and there. So that offensively, that's what we look for. I want to see how we compete against some of the better pitchers that are going to be on our schedule. And then defensively, of course, that's always a work in progress when you have a young team is the defensive side. I like where we've come from. First game of the year, we played Woodland. We had 8 errors in that loss, in that 13-11 loss against Woodland, and that's kind of stuck with us a little bit. But you can bet that we've worked on that and we've gotten better, and we'll continue to work. Not that we're not going to make mistakes. Of course, we're going to make some mistakes. It's just how quickly we can recover from those mistakes and learn from those mistakes and move on with a young team like this. So defensively, we have to be at our best. We know our pitchers are not necessarily going to overpower other teams like we've had in the past. Natalie Lauer, Moira McAtee. Those are two that they can control a game and they can overpower another team and create a lot of strikeouts. Not that we don't get strikeouts with our pitchers that we have right now, but we know there's more potential to put the ball in play now with our pitchers. And so we have to play defense. And so I feel confident with our team right now. We do have a lot of confidence defensively. So going into tomorrow, hopefully we can continue with that confidence and continue that upward trend, both defensively and then stepping in the batter's box offensively. Hopefully we can continue to compete, continue to have quality at bats, and continue to manufacture some runs.
All right, Coach, any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, not really. I appreciate you asking me on. Sam, you do a lot for sports in general, but definitely high school softball. We appreciate all the coverage you give us and all the coverage you give to high school sports in Northeast Indiana. Thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for what you do.
All right, that was Brennen Kinchin of the Eastside Blazers softball team, as his team enters the NECC tournament tomorrow when they travel to Angola as they look to win their 3rd conference tournament in 4 years. Coach, good luck this week in this busy week of softball.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the NEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page NEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the NEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for NEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.